Hey hyenas, and welcome back to your number one place for funny news on the internet. I'm your host Sumito Media, and I just got back from space. Well, not exactly space. It was more like a drive to the 7-Eleven to get a Red Bull, but it did take me less than 15 minutes, which, from what I understand, is all it takes to be considered an astronaut anymore. Jeff Bezos owns a rocket company, an aerospace company by the name of Blue Origin that just developed their New Glenn rocket. And this rocket, most recently on the 14th, traveled into space with an all-female crew, most notably alongside Jeff Bezos' fiancée, as well as pop star Katy Perry for some reason. This space flight is possible because the entire thing is automated. None of the people that are on the crew actually need to know anything about space travel, how to work a computer, thrust, or any of that. They get to just sit around and meme while this rocket on its own takes them up to space and lets them vibe for like 11 minutes before automatically coming back down to Earth. And this is notable because it has allowed an entire female crew of underqualified astronauts to be able to travel to space, which is great because God forbid women learn how to drive anything. Brand new gamer subs launched today, by the way. This one's called Stick Shift, a brand new wifey cup alongside new sweaters and a mouse pad that you can purchase, all available for an extra 10% off if you click my link in the description. Thank you so much in advance. If this news sounds somehow familiar to you, don't fret. That's because this isn't the first time that Jeff Bezos' rocket company Blue Origin has done one of these kind of superficial commercial space travels into what can only barely be defined as traveling into space. Back in 2021, Jeff Bezos rode on the first manned mission of his New Glenn rocket, developed by the same company, to make it into space for the better part of about 10 minutes, alongside his brother and two randoms who would go on to become the youngest and oldest person to make it into space, which is conventionally considered a little bit over 62 miles over sea level. This rocket makes it to about 64 miles above sea level. Far from the moon, but technically space. Back in 2021, Jeff Bezos' spaceflight was met with an amount of criticism that I would argue matches the same amount of criticism that Katy Perry and this all-female crew are receiving in response to these space flights. Number one, the rocket looks way too much like a penis. Like, I understand this joke has been made since rockets have been invented, but this one really looks like a penis. And two, this doesn't really feel like space travel. Like, sure, technically, you're hopping on a rocket and going into space, but space travel historically and conventionally has been considered something that is supposed to be pushing the bounds of engineering and aerospace design. It's supposed to be something we're doing in order to discover other habitable planets, reaching Mars and the moon, going 64 miles, just barely far enough to consider yourself in space, and then spending the entire time taking glamour photos and vibing and then coming back and calling yourself an astronaut is not exactly what space travel has been considered in the past. And the reality is that the entirety of Blue Origin's mission so far have been to commercialize this experience. For the low sum of several $millions, you can hop onto a fully automated rocket with no training and then tell everybody that you're an astronaut. And that's kind of cringe. And so obviously, with the superficial rank of astronaut now being bestowed upon the 6 women as they landed back to Earth and acted as if their entire life outlook has been changed after visiting space, the internet has mostly clowned on the entire endeavor. For one, it almost makes sense for Katy Perry to be on this crew, right? It's an all-female crew, the first all-female crew to fly on this specific rocket doing this specific thing. Katy Perry did recently come out with an album that was all about female empowerment, but even that was met with a level of criticism. Katy Perry has become a little bit of a pariah as of late. Most recently, her album titled 143 had the single A Woman's World that was supposed to be, the entire album was supposed to be this thing about female empowerment. However, it was produced by Dr. Luke, an individual who has been accused of sexual abuse, verbal abuse, and worse by pop star Kesha, and so is a really weird choice for somebody to co-produce the music that you're making about women empowerment when this dude has been abusing women for God knows how long. And so it's almost tongue-in-cheek that you would go out of your way to have Katy Perry, of all people, on this all-female spacecraft supposedly supposed to be about empowering great women who were on this space flight, but it doesn't even stop there because Katy Perry was the one schmucking up the entire endeavor more than anyone else. You would imagine, being one of the biggest pop stars in the world, you probably wouldn't be the one pandering to the camera as much as everybody else there, but for some reason, Katy Perry is the only one getting flack for all of the shenanigans she was up to while in space for the better part of 11 minutes. Truly, during this entire endeavor, all anybody is talking about is Katy Perry. The first clip that's gone a bit viral is her holding up a flower, supposedly a daisy, a call out to her daughter named Daisy to sort of let her know, hey, look, mom's in space, and that's fine and what have you. I actually think it's kind of cute. But then the entire crew lands and there's footage of everybody coming off of the shuttle, and Katy Perry immediately kisses the ground and does a number of interviews talking about how her entire outlook has been changed due to this experience of being in space for the equivalent of a hot shower. And again, on one hand, I do feel a little bit bad because the reality is, like, if a normie like me was given the opportunity to technically go into space, I would also be a little bit scared and obviously overcome with emotion after realizing that I have landed safely back on Earth. I don't know if I would kiss the ground or give a shout out to my cats or something while I was on camera, but like, Katy Perry is getting most of the flack for this because she seems to really be milking the experience, and rather than it being something of like an individual being overcome with emotion after doing something so crazy, it's more so feeling like she's really trying to hammer home how cool the experience is in hopes that other ultra-rich celebrities will hop onto this rocket, pay millions of dollars for a ticket. Like, it feels like she's trying to do promotion for Jeff Bezos' rocket company, and that feels icky. But I feel like people have good reason to meet her with criticism, because this entire experience does sort of diminish the prestige of having reached space. Prior to this, if you were to be one of the few people who has made it into space, you were typically an aerospace engineer, a proper astronaut, somebody who's gone through training of G-forces and what to do in emergencies, how to survive in low-gravity environments for months and months at a time. You had to be some sort of researcher or scientist to even be considered for something like this. Katy Perry is none of those things. She's somebody who used to make good music. That's all it takes. One of the crew members, while being interviewed after landing back on Earth, stated that Katy Perry started singing "What a Wonderful World" while they were up in space. She claims that everybody had been asking Katy Perry to sing anything, and then she decided to sing that, which is, again, I feel like a loser saying, man, what a clout-chasing move, being the one singer and then singing in space and trying to make it space-themed and what have you. But, like, again, this entire endeavor just feels a little bit stupid.
The craziest thing about those bitches going up into space is them coming back down and being like, well, aren't you inspired? No, hooker. What the fuck could you have possibly done that would have inspired me in this moment? You spent over $10 million to go up to space for less than 20 minutes. Less than 20 minutes. You could have ordered a pizza before you went up and it would not have arrived by the time that you came back down.
Domino's seems to have posted on Facebook that in the time that Katy Perry was in space, they sold exactly 2 pizzas. And I think that's kind of really the whole thing with the feedback that the internet is getting off of this. Nobody here on Earth is taking a look at this space flight and going, wow, what a magnificent advancement in human technology. Look at what we accomplished. Rather, it's just rich people doing rich shit and then trying to disguise it under the umbrella of scientific advancement and whatever. All of these people are acting like they just got back from a lengthy space endeavor. People who have been astronauts and up in space and developing things and taking pictures, scientific research for months and months at a time, come back to Earth and don't act the way that these 6 women are acting as if they accomplished something huge. And again, it's cool that they went to space, but like, come on, tone it down a little bit. People have been making plenty of memes clowning on how short this space trip is. A number of people are saying the reason that they landed so quickly after launch is because everybody was trapped with Katy Perry singing, and so they had to make an emergency landing 11 minutes later, which is not the case, but it is hilarious. That sentiment is typically posted alongside footage of the women getting off of the shuttle and then ringing this celebratory bell that I think you're supposed to whenever you get back from space travel, and everybody looks exhausted, except for Katy Perry, who makes a note of making as much of a show of ringing that bell as possible, because of course she would. She's Katy Perry. Do I think having a bunch of rich, out-of-touch celebrities go up into space as promotion for Jeff Bezos' newest company a good idea? Absolutely. If I can make one suggestion, perhaps next time you guys could visit the Titanic in a submarine. Thank you so much for watching this video. Remember to like and subscribe if you want to see me in your inbox a couple times a week. A big shout out to the patrons. Thank you so much for supporting the show, and I will catch you guys on the next one. Spisu.